I am California of the past.
I am California of the past.
I am California of the past.
When I was a girl, our family lived around the corner from the Carnegie Library. We lived with my grandmother Jess in her home that still stands at the corner of 5th and 530 East Streets. Her father, J.B. Brown, which stands for John Beverly Brown, built a home for her when she married Frank Dillian, a local saloon keeper. In fact, the current Dillian's Bar at the corner of 6th Street and Highway 65 was the original site of Frank Dillian's saloon. There was a piano in my grandmother's living room, and on the piano stood a porcelain semi-nude woman that had graced the bar in the Dillian saloon. Above, on the wall, was this 1833 sampler done in Wales by my grandmother's grandmother, Elizabeth Anthony, as you can read here in the careful stitching. You can also read her handwritten message that comes clearly to us from all those years ago. Written on the edge of the sampler in ink is a little message to us from this young woman in Wales in 1833, which says, "When I am dead, and in my grave, and all my bones was rotten, in this sampler you will find my name when I am quite forgotten." I always treasured this sampler and enjoyed the story that my grandmother told about its rescue from a family bonfire. At another family member's home, she happened to see the sampler, seemingly just a scrap of cloth, being tossed into the fire. She snatched it from the flames and claimed it for her own. You can still see a few small burn spots. Later, after I married, I decided that if I eventually had a daughter, I would name her Elizabeth Anthony. Surely by doing so, I hoped that I would inherit the sampler someday. Perhaps my parents had the same idea because my middle name is Anthony. During this time, I indeed had a baby girl, and I indeed named her Elizabeth Anthony. And indeed, the sampler remained on my grandmother's piano, where of course it would remain throughout her life. But meanwhile, in honor of my daughter's birth, my grandmother gave me this little jug with these words on it, "A present from Lanelli." A nice gift from a relative from Wales named Lanelli, I thought, and I set it on a shelf filled with pink rosebuds from the bouquet of pink roses that my husband Alvar had given me when Elizabeth Anthony was born. A new baby left me home with lots of time for reading, and as throughout my life, I found myself often at the Carnegie Library. At one point, I began reading the wonderful Mary Stewart trilogy on Merlin and King Arthur. During my reading of the first volume of the trilogy, The Crystal Cave, I saw that the early locales of the Arthurian legend took place in Wales. Out came my atlas, and as I read, I enjoyed looking up the locations of Arthurian sites such as Caerphilly and Carmarthen, and lo and behold, to my amazement, there on the map, I saw a little town called Llanelli. Yes, my little jug was from Wales, but not from a relative named Lanelli, but from the town of Llanelli. Thanks to a book checked out from the Carnegie Library, and thanks to my grandmother Jess, I had found the town in Wales where our family had lived before sailing to America in 1854. This discovery set our family on a journey of discovery, what I call ancestor adventures, which would lead us back to our family in Wales. What a journey these two family treasures have had. packed away on the wagon as a family left their hilltop village in Wales, packed away in their trunks on the ship Golconda as they crossed the Atlantic and sailed up the Mississippi River, packed away again in the covered wagon as they headed west across the Great Plains. And then as now, they have been proudly and lovingly displayed by generation after generation of Elizabeth Anthony's descendants.